Okay, looks like we got a lot of folks joining us, so we'll give it a few more minutes, and the live streaming is getting set up as well. So, hey, Ricardo, how are you?
Hey, all good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining. We'll give it just maybe 15 more seconds, and then we'll get started. Sharing my slides, so hopefully everybody can see it.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Hassan's here too, so all our presenters are here. That's great. Cool. Without further ado, we'll just get started. I'm sure people will join us, and if you're on Zoom, there's a link to the meeting page, and I'll paste it there. So that's where I'll be capturing notes and agendas there, and also you'll see the slide PDF embedded there as well. So we'll just get started without further ado. Welcome to the March community call. Hopefully you're having a good start of the month. So this year's already moving fast. I'm still wondering what happened to February, but time's just chugging along. So just a quick reminder, like we do at all of our events, whether it's virtual or, I mean, we obviously have an in-person meeting because of the pandemic, but we're operating under our community code of conduct. And if you've been on Slack a few weeks ago, you probably noticed that I had to alert somebody of a community conduct violation because they're just posting spams on our Slack channels. And that was actually reported to me by a community member because I had to notice that when it was first posted. So yeah, if you see anything that you think is inappropriate, feel free to report to me either through DM or that email alias. And just a quick reminder, we want to have a welcoming and safe environment for everybody without getting hit with spams. So the agenda today should look pretty familiar. Got some fun community news to start off with, and then we have Ricardo here, who actually contributed a user story almost 2 years ago. That's how long Ricardo has been involved in our community. So he's got he's going to sort of give us a quick overview of his work in the company and what's sort of new in the past few months or even past couple of years since he posted that first blog post. We have a feature demo from Hassan. We got a couple of interesting ones queued up. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me or type your questions on the Zoom chat, or if you're following along on the live stream, type them on YouTube as well. So I'll keep my eyes open for those. So without further ado, we'll start with the community news. So you may have noticed if you're doing like a Google searches or even on Slack, we decided to launch a community forum on Discourse. So you probably noticed, I'll talk about this in a minute, I've been marking some of the Slack conversation with the Discourse emoji that we just added. So there are a couple of reasons why we've been looking at various forum platforms for the past few months. First thing I mentioned Slack. We're nearing like 3,000 members on Slack. My assumption is that we'll probably cross this threshold by the end of this month at the rate that we've been adding new people. And obviously, since we're on the free plan of Slack, you lose all the conversations once you reach that 10,000 limit, and we've had more than 55,000 messages to date. So a lot of the old conversations or good interactions that we've been having are getting lost. And then, even if we were able to keep all of our, 55,000 messages, because the volume's gone up pretty significantly, it's really hard to find and search for conversations that you want to use as a reference. So Slack really wasn't meant to be used as a knowledge base, so to speak. So we're really reaching that limitation. And I think, like in general, I mean, Slack is great. I mean, we're still going to have Slack, and we're going to keep using it. It's better suited for quick conversations. And I mean, if you think of an example where you've been on vacation for a week and came back, I mean, you're not going to scroll through all the messages from the previous like 7 or 8 days while you've been out, because it just becomes very tedious, and it's not going to be very productive. So we wanted to find a platform where it's easier to categorize and search information outside of Slack. And I've also had a number of coffee chats, I mean, of course, over Zoom with community members, and like almost always unprompted, people have, asked for, is there a different platform that we can use where it's easy to have conversation on things like tips, use cases that's easy to search and find, and then you don't have to worry about losing them. So that's two of the primary reasons why we've been looking at different platforms for forums. And we decided, we looked at a couple of alternatives, but we decided Discourse is probably the best platform. And here are some of the key reasons. So actually, some of the community members that I've talked to, they sort of presented me with examples. I mean, when Syndex team talked about their user story last month, they talked to us about they're also involved in the DBT community, and they have a Discourse forum, which is very active. And that's one of the examples that I looked at. And a lot of the other open source communities, including the ones that a lot of our community members are involved in, already use Discourse. So we thought there would be a lot of familiarity by going with that tool. And obviously it's been around for a long time, almost 10 years. So it's a tool that's widely used. And then user interface and the features there are pretty intuitive. We think that it's easy enough for people to use without a lot of friction and without a lot of like onboarding pains necessarily. And speaking of like a user story from Syndex, one of the feedback I've heard on user stories, I mean, they like it. They want us to they want us to continue doing publishing user stories, but they realize like publishing these user stories, I mean, take a while. I mean, this is not something that we can spin out in a couple of days. We wish we could, but usually involves like a lot of different layers of reviews and feedback back and forth, because it usually takes like a couple of months from start to finish, start to publish. It takes a couple of months to publish something like that. So actually we have a good example of like a quick update or a quick sharing of their use cases that can be done really quickly on Discourse. So I mean, this is another platform where people can create nice looking contents. I mean, you have a lot more features for formatting. Like you can even do things like polls, so you can create a pretty fun content. So we like the capability that Discourse offers in that regard. And the other thing, this is like almost a clincher for me personally, was that you can export like Slack conversations. If I see something on Slack that we think it's worth saving for future reference, and here's an example where there's an emoji that I mentioned earlier that I marked it as, this is a good conversation to export to Discourse. So if you see these, you'll see them exported to our Discourse forum. And then here's an example. Let me quickly show you. I mean, this was through just a slash command that I did. This is a conversation that was started by Igor regarding using Cube.js with Nevo, because we thought people might benefit from this. And this was exported, and it keeps all the like a formatting from Slack, and then all this text are searchable. So whether you do a Google search or you search through Discourse, you'll be able to find. These information will be easy to find. So I really like that feature because we're going to keep using in Slack, and then if we want to move some of the conversation to Discourse so that it's saved for later conversations and reference, this is a pretty neat tool. So I really like that, and you'll probably see more of this emoji going forward. So this is like, these are the main reasons why we went with this course, and I really appreciate people either through coffee chats or coming to me with DMs on Slack about their concerns about, how do we, like maintain or keep these conversations that's going to be helpful for a lot of community members later on, and we don't have to worry about losing it, and it's easier to search. So I really welcome feedback, not just on this regard about the forum, but others in general. So like I said, I like to do coffee chats and have conversation with community members. So if you like to do that, I mean, feel free to DM me, or if you look at my profile on Slack, I have a link there with my Calendly link, so you can book calls with me, whatever time zone you're in. You should be able to find like a 30-minute block where you can schedule time with me. So feel free to use that Calendly link and book a meeting with me, and love to hear your feedback and your thoughts. So a couple more slides on this course. So there's always a bit of a, I mean, I don't want to call it a risk. I don't know if risk is the right term, but there's like, we introduce a complexity when we introduce new tools or platforms in the community. And a lot of communities have sort of like worked through this, including DBT and others that I looked at. If you have different platforms like Discourse, Slack, and Stack Overflow, one of the first questions will be, which platform do I use for what purpose? So, I'm working on a blog post when we formally launch the platform or Discourse forum, that I'll go through this, and I'll discuss this as well. But I want to summarize it here on the purpose of different tools. I mean, there'll be some, it's natural to have some overlaps, but I think it's good to have sort of clear delineation of what different platforms are for. So again, this course is, I think this is a good tool for sharing your knowledge, use cases, ideas, and recipes. And then any discussion you think that like other members will benefit, weeks or even months like later on. These are good topics to create in this course, and I'll talk about different categories that we created for this course. But so that's sort of the main purpose of this course. Like, if you don't want to lose a conversation, and if you believe a lot of people will benefit from what your knowledge that you gain, this course is a place to be. And Slack is more for like a quick conversations and quick connections with other people. And if you don't mind like losing that conversation in a few days, I mean, Slack is a good place to do that. And like I said, we're still going to have Slack around. So, I mean, you don't have to worry about like losing them, but you probably want to think about where you want to post your question or discussion, whether it's in Slack or Discourse. And Stack Overflow, I mean, people have been posting questions, and I mean, this is something Jeff Atwood, he's the founder of both Discourse and Stack Overflow. This is something that he talked about a few years ago on a podcast. And I mean, basically what he said, like the Stack Overflow is for question and answer. I mean, there's usually a right or wrong answer to the question. So if you want to have a technical question, and then you don't need to have like an ongoing discussion with other community members, Stack Overflow is a place to go for technical questions when you get stuck doing something. And then so I have some example questions there, like, is it possible to do X in Cube.js, et cetera, et cetera. So it's Stack Overflow. Like I like the way Jeff Atwood sort of phrased it. It's a little bit more transactional. Like, you're just looking for an answer. If you can't find it, you're just going to go away. Whereas Discourse is your question may not have a right or wrong answer necessarily, but it's more for discussions that I mean, some of the discussions on Discourse could go on for like weeks or months. So it serves a different purpose. So, I mean, hopefully this makes it clear. It'll probably take us a few months, like other communities, to sort of find our community norm for different platforms. But we thought this would be a helpful guidance. But let me know if you have any feedback or anything's not clear as I'm working on the blog post for this in a few weeks. Quickly, this is, this should be the last slide for this course. So we'll probably launch it in a few weeks. And then, I mean, the site is live and it's already public. So, I mean, we're doing this in a sort of open fashion as we're seeding content. But we'll sort of officially launch it with blog posts and social announcements in a few weeks. We want to make sure that for each of this, like the categories that we created for our forum, that there's a decent amount of content in there. Because if you just create, categories and there are no discussions or contents that are there, it's not going to attract people. So we wanted to make sure that a lot of discussions were seated in each of the categories, so that it looks ready to go prime time. So that's sort of what we'll be working on, making sure that contents are seated in each of our 7 categories that we created. I mean, if you go to forum.cube.dev, you'll see the descriptions on the 7 categories. I won't go through them in detail, but I mean, feel free to browse, and I mean, you should be able to use social login features with GitHub, Google, and Twitter. But of course, you're free to create your own login account if you wish. But we wanted to make the logging in easier. I mean, feel free to not only browse, but start conversations. It's completely open. There are no restrictions. There are no fences at all or guardrails. So you can start any topics that you like in each of the categories. And we want to have some fun as we're getting started. So we're working on some fun merchandise or Cube.js swags for what we call early pioneers. So as an example, like for the first 10 people that create a topic in each of the categories, you'll get a little trinket. So, hopefully I'll share more of that detail in the next few weeks, but I encourage you to sort of log in and start conversations, and we definitely look forward to it. I mean, it's just like Slack. It can be very casual. It doesn't have to be fully polished when you post something, so it should be pretty easy to do. So let me pause there real quick. Just to check on the chats on YouTube and Zoom to make sure that there are no other questions. If there are no other questions, if you have any questions, like even after the call, I mean, feel free to reach out to me either via email or Slack, or like I said, I mean, happy to have like a coffee chats with anybody. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any concerns or questions about forum.cube.dev. I encourage everybody to sort of log on during and after the call and let me know what you think. So without further ado, I know Ricardo's here, so I want to turn things over to him. And before I do that, I mean, in case you're joining us late, the original blog post was published like April 2019, so almost 2 years ago, in the very early days of Cube.js. So I'll ask Ricardo to talk about the overview and their use cases, I mean, dating back from 2019. But as I noted earlier, Ricardo created a new post on Discord, sort of updating their use case and sort of the current challenges they're going through. So you can find a post here, which is hopefully this didn't take a whole lot of time, but like I said, it's pretty easy to write a quick content versus a full-blown like a case study or user story, but it's easy enough to sort of insert images and whatnot. So hopefully people will find it helpful. But I'll just shut up and then turn things over to you, Ricardo, and let you take it from here.
Hey, thank you, Ray. Well, we've been using Cube for over 2 years now. It's been a very, very fun journey. I think we started using it just a few months after it started as an open source product. We found a couple of mishaps here and there that we needed to cover. Like our contributions were not only on the UI itself, but also on the MongoDB connection originally, because we use MongoDB Atlas as our service for the MongoDB, which has its issues, but it also has its benefits. Nowadays, for example, our architecture uses Cube in a very interesting way because our customers have very dynamic databases. They can customize the fields they have. They can have multiple types of data. And within that, that made it a bit difficult to manage some of the schemas and how the Cube handled those schemas. So a colleague of mine actually worked on it, I think it was around 5-6 months ago. What he did was kind of creating dynamic schemas based on context. Similar actually to some of the work that Hazan has been doing lately, which we were interested in a bit, but now it's a bit too late for us. It's implemented now. On another note, since originally the dashboards playground that we currently have in Cube was not intended to be used as an actual product. It was just a complementary thing to building out the schemas and the graphs and everything. So we actually also built our own. I think if you can put the story, there's some pictures. Should be the second one. Which if you look at it, it looks very similar to the dashboard playground that Cube currently offers. It was also a challenge in itself to integrate some of the charts, because as a testing automation engine, we generate very different types of data sets. Okay, now go a little bit lower. So for example, our general architecture is very simple in itself. We do have everything containerized in Elastic Beanstalk. We have 3 different moving parts, which is of course Cube.js, the running instances. We have a second part, which is the MongoBI connector, because since MongoDB doesn't have a SQL interface by itself, we needed to use a MongoBI connector that does conversion between the NoSQL into an SQL-like structure. But that required us to do some custom views in some areas because of how our data structures were, which is right now, I would say, the most difficult point, because between connecting Cube to the MongoBI connector, that's where we're having some performance issues that we need to address, but we've been working on that. And from there, the MongoBI connector actually connects to multiple databases with multiple different structures in themselves, which is where the dynamic schema creation comes in. It in itself has been a really fun challenge, I would say, but we're very happy to have Cube. And I think that's it. There's not much else to explain.
I have a question for you, Ricardo.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like the containerization piece. That's interesting to see. It's something we're thinking about doing. I was curious if you started doing containerization like that early, because it's since you were have been on Cube for so long, or if this is something you did recently on like leveraging the recent Docker images of Cube.
No, actually, we originally what we did was we extended the Express version and containerized it in its own. Actually, since we didn't have an Express application in itself, we just used it to mount the Cube.js instance. But yeah, we've been doing that. Although I think it was, since it was released, the new updated version, we updated our stack a bit. Although we're not using the containerized version, we did update to the new structure, because we do have some custom code running in some of the areas, such as authentication and of course the dynamic schema creation.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's kind of the point we're at too, is a bit of refactoring to switch to the new structure. Cool.
Cool. Thanks for your question, JC. We have a couple of Cube engineering folks on the line as well. Not sure if anybody from the team have any questions. Yeah, it looks like yeah, I guess there are no other questions, but I mean, thanks, Ricardo, for posting your updated story on this course. And I mean, people have any questions, we can follow the topic here on the forum, and yeah, and then feel free to come back with any other updates, Ricardo. Thanks for doing this.
Sure, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. So let me switch back here. Yeah, I know, like Marcelo, hopefully you're not having any more like audio issues, but let me know. Like, hopefully it was just sort of a glitch for a few minutes, but hopefully audio issues aren't there anymore. Cool. That sounds like everything's good. Cool. So yeah, without further ado, I guess I think I may have said 2, but it looks like we have 3 feature demos. Hassan, like, I guess I need to stop sharing because I assume you want to share on your screen.
Please.
Cool.
Please.
So all right, so let me stop sharing and I'll turn things over to you.
Awesome. Hi, Cube.js community. Nice to see everyone again. So we have a couple of feature demos. One is Cube Store. It has now reached general availability. If you've been following the community calls, I'm sure you've heard quite a bit about Cube Store. So we're very excited to announce that it's now shipping with new projects. So what I wanted to do here in this demo was to show you how to get set up and add it to a new project. So I'm going to create a new project here. And we'll call it Hello Cube Store, and we'll just use Postgres. While this is installing, I thought I'd explain really briefly to people what Cube Store is in case anyone is unaware. Cube Store is our brand new pre-aggregation storage layer. It's built from the ground up to address pre-aggregation storage, and it is written in Rust. The source is available in the GitHub repo for Cube.js. Please have a look around and have a play with it. Very interested to hear how people use it. And yeah, just let's wait for this to complete. Okay, we are done. Let's just get into the project and let's open the editor. Cool. So let's crack open the .n. I'm just going to plug some demo values we've got. Yeah, that should be enough to get us started. If we just start the server now, we should get that. And if we go to the playground, we should get the generate schema. And we'll just generate the schemas that we found inside our demo database. Now we have a bunch of different schemas, a bunch of different things we can query. We're going to look at this.
Yeah, Hassan, I'm not sure if you're seeing your screen live. It seems like it's like frozen.
Oh,
yeah.
Shall I try resharing? Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Can everyone see it? I'm on the playground. Is it showing?
No, we're just seeing blank for some reason.
I'm not sure what the issue could be. I'll try sharing again.
Are you sharing a specific window
I'm
or an app?
just the specific window now. If anyone else could let me know if they can see it.
No, I think it's still blank. It just said you started sharing, but we just see a black screen.
Can you see anything here? Is anything changing, or is it just a black screen?
Yeah, it's a black screen. Always happens during a demo.
I'm not entirely sure what I can do else to try.
Let me just try one thing. I'll just start sharing my screen, and then.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see this? Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing and then try it one more time. That's weird.
No, nothing.
No. Can you? Yeah, maybe, I don't know if you need to reconnect, but on Zoom, but can you try sharing an app or the entire window? I don't know if you want to do that.
I do have the entire desktop.
Okay.
JC just posted a
oh, yeah.
try. I'm going to try that really quickly. 1 second. Sorry, guys.
No worries. I love this real-time technical support from participants.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
So this just bit me yesterday, so I don't know if this is something that's happening, but definitely this is what we're telling everybody at Jobber to do.
Okay, I've enabled it. Can anyone? Is it working yet?
No.
Once it goes black, you might have to restart Zoom.
Oh, okay. So I'll disconnect and reconnect then.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, guys.
So no worries. No worries. So while we're waiting, rather than just staying silent, like I was just checking if anybody else logged on to Discourse in the last few minutes, and I don't think anybody has, but this is your chance if you want to try that out. Just forum.cube.dev and try to log in with your GitHub ID, for example. All right, Hassan's back, it looks like.
Right.
Oh, now we see it.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Okay. So where was I? We generated the project, and I had set the environment variables. So we'd set up a database, and following from that, I generated a couple of schemas from the public schema in the Postgres database. They're very simple. There's not a lot going on here. Just for the purpose of the demo, I thought it would be easier if it was simple. So if we check out product categories, for example, we'll see a bunch of different results here. And for the purposes of the demo, we could assume that this is a hot query. It's used a lot and it's quite expensive, so we'd like to pre-aggregate it. If we check out the cache section and check out specifically the pre-aggregations, we'll see there is nothing here, and that's because we haven't configured anything. So if we go off to the schema, we can go down to the bottom part here and add a pre-aggregation section. And we'll call the pre-aggregation names. That it can be called anything. We'll create a type rollup. We'll say the dimension references for this are name, because this is the one that we want in the pre-aggregation. We won't have any measure references, so we'll leave that empty. We'll define a time dimension reference, which is created at, and granularity settings. And finally, the most important one, which is really cool, is you can define external true, just like that here. And if you noticed earlier, I don't have an external database set up, not in my .env file, and neither is there anything in my Cube.js configuration file. So if we go back and we refresh, we should see the same results. But if we go to the cache section specifically, and we go to pre-aggregations, we now have a pre-aggregation that matches this query. And just so you know that we're not cheating, you can check inside the project folder yourself under the cube stored data, and you'll see a Parquet file, which is the pre-aggregation. Sorry, I skipped a bit quickly through it. There. So that's Cube Store, and that's how you can get started with it today. It should be, if you use the same process that I did with npx and create a new project, you should be able to get started with it today. And yeah, that's it for Cube Store. Now, I wanted to show you guys our new JSON Web key set support. We also have guides now in the documentation specifically for integrating Auth0 and Cognito. For this demo, I thought I'd run you through integrating Auth0, but with a little assumption that I'm assuming that the Auth0 side of things is already set up. So going back to my terminal really quickly, let's just go back a folder and let's create a new project just for Auth0. While this is creating, we're going to go to OpenIDConnect.net, which is the OpenID Connect playground. It's a really handy tool by the Auth0 guys to test auth flows, OAuth flows, and tokens. So I've already pre-configured some settings here for Auth0. You can find how to do that in the documentation. And so we simply click Start here to start the authorization process. Because I've done this before, it just simply gives us a code to exchange for a token. And once we exchange it, I hope everyone can see there's an access token JWT here, quite long. And just to verify what we've got inside the token, we can go and use the JWT.io debugger. Just paste the token in there, and we can see the decoded token here. It has the standard JWT claims, but I've configured our Auth0 application to have a rule where it creates a custom namespace, and according to that custom namespace, the first name of my token user is Jaren and last name is Spinker, which we're going to use in the Cube.js playground shortly. So going back to the project, it's now created. Let's go inside the folder and once again open the editor first and just do a little bit of configuration. Open the env file, same as before. There is now a little bit of additional configuration that we didn't do last time. This is specific to the JWKS support. So we have a few new variables here, and these are also available via the Cube.js configuration file under the JWT property. I'd recommend people check out the documentation for more information. It's all covered there. Just going to grab the JWKS URL, For Auth0, it will look something like this, and your unique part will probably be just this part of the URL. A few other environment variables to configure here: JWT issuer, which is basically the first part of that URL. Cube.js JWT algorithms. So this is the valid algorithms that I use to encode and decode the token, or decode in Cube.js's case. And then the custom namespace that I created. If we want Cube.js to decode that correctly, then we need to specify what that is. And just so everyone's clear, it's this value here, which I will just copy and paste. So now that everything's configured, we can go back to the terminal and we can start this project. We'll start it without, not in detached mode. Awesome, so that should be up and running. So we're back at the generate schema page again. This time we're just going to generate a schema for the users table. Let's go over and have a quick look at it. So we have a user's first name, user's last name, user's company. So this is showing us all of the users because the security context isn't actually configured inside the schema. If we have a quick look at the schema here, there's nothing configured here that will limit the results returned by the query. So just so that we can see our JWT in action, limiting data, we're going to set the same query up, and we're going to edit our schema under users. So just in case anyone doesn't know, security context, this is this will contain the values of the token as decoded by Cube.js, this same JWT here. And the first name property is from the custom claims namespace, which is available on the top level because we have defined the custom claim namespace in the configuration. And then we want it to filter on the first name field here. Similarly, we would like to do the same for the last name. So let's just go and do that and save. Now that that's all done, before we go back to the playground, let's just copy the token that we received, the access token from Auth0, and we'll edit our security context and just quickly paste it in there. We'll save. And there we go. It's refreshed, it's run the query, and it's limited my results to just the row that my user can access, which is my own record in this case. So that's JWKS support. And the last demo, it was a really quick one. I thought it would be nice to show a quality of life improvement that we've added recently. So you may have this with, if you switch between a bunch of different projects, you may have queries saved in your browser history for fields that don't exist. Now the playground will show you in red and with an error message telling you that these members don't exist. So just to help, just is a little bit more helpful than it was before. And I think it's really nice, really good quality of life improvement for the playground. Just excited to share it with everyone. Thanks to Alex for getting this done. And I think that's it with the feature demos, really. I hope it all made sense. I'll have a quick look at the questions now. Oh, there weren't any questions. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll hand it back to Ray then.
Cool. Thanks. All right. So, well, thank you, JC, for live debugging of Zoom issues, and thank you, Hassan, for staying calm under pressure. I didn't even notice that you're probably stressed, but I may have walked up the stage if I were in your shoes. But thanks for hanging on. And yeah, hopefully, I think it was just like a typing of some command line commands initially that we may have missed when the screen was like frozen somewhat. But hopefully that wasn't a big issue. But if people have any questions, just let us know. And then, I mean, maybe we can even re-record a portion of it if we need to. But hopefully that wasn't a big issue. And yeah, we'll probably. I mean, this was pretty well received last month. These feature demo. I think people really liked it. If there are certain features that up and coming that people want to see, if people want to provide feedback, I mean, we'll obviously have a backlog of things that we want to go over in the next few months. But if there are certain things that people want to see, perhaps even in more detail, I mean, just let us know, and happy to take that into consideration. So I think, yeah, we sort of reached the end of our agenda. Just want to make sure people don't have any questions or comments. Like I said, I mean, feel free to reach out to me through DM or schedule a call with me. Not just about the community, but specifically about like a future calls, like agenda topics that you want to see. And one thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about the discourse rollout, I think in the January call, I talked about potentially doing some sort of a virtual hackathon type event in Q1, but we decided to sort of put that off until the forum has been rolled out for a few months. So I haven't forgotten about that. So we definitely want to do that at some point. But I thought it was important to get this forum rolled out based on community feedback. And also forum is a good tool that we can use for during events anyway. So we wanted to sort of have that in place and up and running. So I'll come back with more details, but let me know if folks have any questions. But I haven't forgotten about that. Like initially, maybe I was a little aggressive. I said Q1, but we'll definitely try to have it at some point, and I'll come back with more details. If there are no other questions, Ricardo, Hassan, thanks for your presentations and joining. And we'll talk to everybody again in about 4 weeks. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.